Hi, I'm Johann Don-Daniel. I'm a sound artist. I'm also a drummer, synth player, and co-producer in the noise punk band Le Pan. Um, I work on a number of different projects that involve sound, drums, and lots of tech. Through these different areas, I use a lot of combination of software and hardware, and I'll talk about those things, and hopefully some of those things might be useful to you or just spark some imagination or creativity on better ways that you can use it. Three main areas of my current work in practice. One is research, one is making and building sound machines, and the third one is workshops. Number one is research. And research might sound boring, but it isn't, because I have a cat to make it a bit more interesting sometimes. One little thing about research that I find really useful is having this little e-reader. So I've got Kobo, and all I do is I download an EPUB, or I can link to Libby, which is like the free public libraries or whatever other library you're associated with. And the highlighting tool I find really useful. So you can just click on a word and like drag it, and then you've got yourself a quote that you can save. It saves on the cloud, so it goes to your computer, and it makes it really easy to keep track of your research and your sort of workflow. Cool. Number two, making and building sound machines. I'm going to show you a couple of clips. One is of me performing with something that I've made, and number two will be one that is an interactive piece. This is a little example of a work I put in at the land exhibition at the art station called the Earth Resonator. And there's a metal plate there I'm pouring some soil over. Inside it is a hole. Some sounds are resonating within the hole, within the earth and along the steel plate. You'll be able to see some pictures in a little while of a steel wire going through a hole in that plate into the earth, going across the guitar that you might be able to see, and just using the pickups from the guitar. Experimentation, earth resonance, and just like a little example of how I'm using like different technologies and create the effects that I want. On top of that, I kind of added a soundscape that I made for the exhibition itself. There's a really interesting interplay that I like to find. I do, where I can, try and use analog filters where possible, but I do mix that with the technology. I use a variety of pickups, piezos, including like humbuckers, single coil, air coil. The microphones I use include dynamic microphones, condenser microphones, and ribbon microphones, and they are all tested out. Obviously, in the experimental way, I will use them in ways they're not supposed to use them, and then see what happens, and then run tests to find out which is going to be the best suited for the purpose. Again, for the speakers, depending on what's possible, the size of the space, etc., I will look at what speakers I have available, look what frequency ranges I'm looking for, and then choose those accordingly. Okay, the next one up is T-Chess 2.0. It's an interactive piece that involves a combination of mixer, mics, digital and analog effects. A lot of play in the building of this machine. It combines a lot of the skills that I've picked up along the way in sort of wood and metal work, as well as the audio stuff. It's part of a framework of research that I call Vessels. I'm kind of combining performance with workshops to provide this interactivity as another way of understanding works without words. That teacher sounds pretty crazy, and it was bouncing around the gallery of the House of Aneta. I built a handmade spring reverb, sending sounds in and out through the mixer using transducer speakers, and in a kind of no computer setup, which seemed to really work well for that space and for that piece. Number three is workshops, and I do a variety of workshops, and I bring kit dependent on the group, the space, and the project focus. My staple kit is mics and an audio interface. In the project coming up, I use touch boards, including the Makey Makey and the Bear Conductive. There was so much exploration in this project, but designing and building the instruments was particularly fun. Primary, I met Miss Gore and the students, and they asked unanimously had chosen the graveyard. There was a session about programming and uploading the sounds that they had made, and then developing those into playable
sounds, like creating their own soundboards. Some of the focus activities included drawing from sound, which the children really took to. Another one was exploring narrative, the written narrative and spoken narrative. So the kids wrote ghost stories.
In a grey thought, there was a ghost light playing football, saying little
A sequencer is like a bank of sounds, and these sounds can be played to time. You can adjust things like tempo and pitch. And so I made a mini sequencer using all of the sounds that the kids had generated. And so it's now in a format that the kids can play it and they can play to time. For me, the project was about allowing the kids to find ways to explore the graveyard. So whether that is through word, through spoken word, through written word, through drawing from sound, through programming, through making instruments that you can play, through the computer, through talking, through conversation. And it was all of those things. By the end of the project, I had so much positive feedback from children saying they wanted to be a sound artist, to one kid basically using the sequencer, and he was like a little DJ playing drum and bass using the sounds made by other kids. And some kids just like really enjoying the narrative aspect and things like that. And so it was such a fun project.
Yeah, on that last little bit, it showed a little bit of my some workshop stuff I do, and in the workshops I definitely use things that are really robust, like making keys, bare conductives, laptops, school computers and whatever, and I try and find those things out first if I'm going to go and do that. But for my own stuff, I will use Raspberry Pis, or with certain groups I might use Raspberry Pis, but definitely more of my own stuff is Raspberry controls as controllers, and then things like this as like a circuits that you can attach to the Raspberry Pi, and that allows you to do like touch sensors and MIDI control and things like that. So all of the work I do, no matter what it is, workshops and my own stuff and soundscapes and things like that, does end up in my DAW, my digital audio workstation, and my go-to one is Bitwig. There are plenty of others out there, free ones like Reaper, but I use Bitwig because it's simply beasts, and I'm just really used to the workflow, and the plugins are really amazing, samples are amazing, and it's just really fun. That's where I can really refine things and sort of just go a little bit ham. So I hope that gives you a bit of a flavour as to some of the work I do and some of the variations I work with. I hope you've got some takeaways as to the hardware and software that might be useful to work with, and just different ways of playing, sharing and making loads of noise. There's plenty of stuff out there, and yeah, enjoy yourselves. Thanks a lot for your time. Best.